Hi, I'm Sherry Damaris and welcome to Macro Magic. And today I have with me Michael Balabayev. And he's going to talk a lot about gardening, but also how he grows mushroom logs. These are really interesting logs that he inoculates with various types of mushrooms. And then he's going to show us some beautiful dishes that he's created with mushrooms. So welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Sherry.
It's so great to have you here. He's like one of my favorite people. And you just know so much about gardening, but also about plants. And we were just talking about animals, like what kind of animals like to eat out of your garden and how to keep squirrels and rabbits and groundhogs out of your garden. So tell us a little bit about these mushroom logs. They're just such intriguing things.
Well, I grew up in Russia, and I went mushroom picking in the woods with my family like every weekend. And here, first of all, you're sometimes far. You know, I live in the suburbs, and I have to go to Brandywine Valley to find mushrooms, and I don't have time. I have to work all the time. So I thought, can I grow them in my backyard? And I did some research, and it was really an experiment. I inoculated the logs, and the mushrooms came up. It was like a miracle. I was blown away. So now I try to do it every other year. I skipped last year, but this winter I'm inoculating a new batch.
Now, when you inoculate these, how you described them to me was that you drill holes in them, and you put the
mycelium with sawdust. Well, the first step is you need to find the logs. So the logs have to be freshly cut wood, cut in the winter when all the sap is inside them. And different mushrooms like different wood. So this is red maple, and this is a shiitake log. Shiitake grows very well on red maple and on oak, on white oak and red oak. So this is the drill method. I put the mycelium in there and then seal it with beeswax. And what happens is called a spawn run. It takes 6 to 8 months, and after that, mushrooms start appearing. And this log is going to be good for about 4 or 5 years.
That's
it
amazing.
Will produce a couple of times a year.
So
naturally.
I bought the shiitake log, and it was just this year, and I went outside and I saw these huge mushrooms come out on the log, and they're they don't taste like store-bought mushrooms. They're so much more delicious.
Well, the reason is because these grow naturally. So shiitake is a Japanese mushroom. It's not from North America. But they grow on oak. Actually, the translation of shiitake, it means just the oak mushroom in Japanese.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they're meant to grow. They're not meant to grow like in dark greenhouses. You get you don't get that quality. These ones can grow the size of a palm, and they would still be turned and very thick, creamy. So.
Wow, and you grow other mushrooms on the logs too?
Yeah, I grow a bunch, like about 24 different kinds of mushrooms.
That's amazing. And today you're going to show us a dish using some of these mushrooms that you've grown on your logs.
So, when we have a harvest, usually there's too many mushrooms. Shiitake actually dry really well, but other mushrooms like oyster mushrooms, they don't dry well. They kind of turn into cardboard if you try to dry them. So what I do with them is I saute them with oil without any seasonings to wait till the moisture comes out of them, and then I just freeze them in individual freezer bags for enough for a dish. So today I have some extra frozen shiitake that was just too much. I dried several bags last year, and I froze some. And this is a mushroom called comb's tooth. It's really cool. It likes to grow on beech trees, and this one is native to our region, but it's very hard to find. It looks like a white coral. It's a beautiful,
nice.
It's a big mushroom.
It's a little furry.
Yeah, it's related to lion's mane, which you might be familiar with, but lion's mane is like very plain tasting. Comb's tooth has a delicious sweet flavor, much tastier than lion's mane.
So those two were the frozen mushrooms that you're going to show, and these are some fresh.
Yeah, so I like to, so today I will make a mushroom sauce. I kind of developed this recipe myself. And to make it a little lighter, I like to add some fresh mushrooms. So when I have fresh mushrooms in the summer or spring or fall, I mean, I prefer to use that. But in the winter, I just got some organic baby portobello mushrooms, and just to make the sauce a little lighter.
Great.
But for a sauce like this, I like to have at least 3 kinds of mushrooms just to make it a little richer.
Well, let's get started.
All right.
You have a frying pan, cast iron frying pan that you're going to use.
All right, so we're just going to use some olive oil.
Now, this sauce you can freeze too, right? If you want.
You can, but I mean, you can freeze the mushrooms without seasonings. So I don't think there's a need to freeze the sauce. I mean, you could.
So these are onions that you're putting in?
Yep. So onions, let them saute a little bit. I like to get them almost caramelized. So maybe while they're cooking, they need a minute or so. I can talk about other kinds of mushrooms that can be grown on logs. So shiitake, they like hardwoods like oak and maple. Like this is maple. Mm-hmm. The oyster mushrooms, they prefer softwood. The best one I found, I tried different things. I tried willow. It's pretty soft, but it's very dry. Tulip poplar seems to work the best for oyster mushrooms. And I don't inoculate them this way. I slice them up with a chainsaw, wrap them in a plastic bag for 3 months, and then unwrap it, and voila, it's good to go after about 3 months. And they produce like crazy each, and so this is called a totem method. Each totem will at one time can grow like 4 pounds in one fruiting.
Now, are you imitating how they grow in nature? Like, do these mushrooms naturally grow on these types of
Yes, absolutely.
logs in nature?
If you I mean, I find oyster mushrooms in my neighborhood growing on Japanese maple. They seem to like Japanese maple. And once they start growing on a tree, I mean, it's a death knell for the tree. The tree is not going to survive very long. Because especially oyster mushrooms are very aggressive. So they consume the tree. Within 3 or 4 years, it's going to be dead if you see a cluster of oyster mushrooms on a tree. All right, so now I can add the garlic.
How did you become such a fantastic gardener as well as a cook?
My family was into gardening. My mother, who's still alive, had a PhD in agriculture, and we had a lot of land that we could cultivate, and I just kind of grew up doing it, and then I started a business doing garden design and landscaping, endless gardens. And actually, if you're interested in these logs, I have a link on my website called Mushrooms, and it describes what logs I have available this year.
So you can order them, and Michael will deliver them to your house?
If it's not too far away, because I mean these things are heavy, as you can see, and really to have a decent amount of mushrooms for yourself, you needed 5 logs, different ones, because even shiitake, there are different varieties of shiitake, and they fruit at different times, and it's nice to space them out rather than get them all at once.
And I can't believe that they keep producing year after year. You said up to 4 years?
Even 5.
Wow.
So with shiitake, last time I made these logs was 5 years ago. So I mean, I made some new ones, but I sold all of them. So at my house, the logs are 5 years old, and some of them don't have any bark. They're still making mushrooms.
Wow.
So I'm ready to get rid of them this winter and just start a new batch. So this will
Wow.
be my work in the
It
next couple
saves
of
you
weeks.
so much money too. If you think about the amount of money you spend buying mushrooms, they're quite expensive.
Well, yes, I mean, but the quality of these is way, way, way better than what you can get in the store. Okay, so now I added some salt. Now it's starting to caramelize. At this point, we can add so I chopped up some walnuts.
Okay.
I could have put them in the processor, but I wanted to have some texture, so I just chopped them up with a knife.
This will make this sauce really rich.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, I think we need to add a little water. It's starting to get dry.
Now you said you've made lasagna and used this sauce before.
Yeah, yeah. So I often make lasagna with this sauce, and there is like a variation that I'll talk about.
Nice.
Okay, so at this point we can add the mushrooms.
And those are
So
the shiitake.
these are shiitake. They've just been cooked in olive oil without any seasonings, without salt. And I fried them till the moisture came out, and then I froze them. Not more than 10 minutes. And when you defrost them, I mean, they taste pretty much almost as good as fresh.
Now, did you saute the comb mushrooms
Yes, yeah,
as well?
absolutely. It needs to be sautéed before you freeze it. Otherwise, it's going to turn into a mush that's not so good. And I will add a few of those just for fresh texture.
Now, these you store-bought?
Yeah, these are just organic baby portobello.
Now, we had Philip's mushroom from Kennett Square on.
Yeah.
She made a stuffed portobello. I think it was like last year on the show. And we talked about mushrooms and all the benefits that they have. You know, especially the lion's mane. Now they're saying helps with Alzheimer's and brain function.
Yeah,
Shiitake helps with liver.
It's not, lion's mane is nootropic. Combs tooth right here has exactly the same properties. It's just, for some reason, it's never talked about, but I think it's a superior culinary mushroom. And mushrooms have selenium, which is, you know, important for. Mostly I do this because I like it, you know. I'm not necessarily looking to become super healthy,
But you are in the process.
I guess.
So the really easy recipe.
Yeah, so now we let this saute, let the mushrooms cool down, and we will add the herbs. To give this dish even like a more earthy taste, I like to use sage and rosemary. So sage is a great aromatic, but it actually cooks down, and it's not.
That's a lot of sage.
Well, it is. I like to use a big handful because it cooks
nice.
down almost like spinach, you know, and it doesn't have too much flavor. That's why I'm not afraid to use a lot.
I'm glad you're showing this because the garden you helped me develop this year, I had tons of sage, and I would only use like one leaf at a time in my soups.
No, it's like this is great. Like if, I mean, we're vegetarian too, so we have these. Vegan raviolis once a week because they're easy, and I like to use onions with sage, and like I would even use 3 times the amount of sage because it cooks, and it's like a wonderful sauce on the raviolis.
Okay, all right, good to know. You use lots of sage.
Yeah, it just gives this earthy aroma, and so sage and rosemary. I mean, you can also use thyme, but like I find the sage and rosemary combination is good for this dish. If you want to make it with thyme, just use thyme and don't use these because it will get too confusing, you know, like, flavor-wise.
Well, rosemary is nice in the garden because it's still growing.
Yeah.
At least mine is.
No, I picked these from my garden. I picked these from my garden, both
wow.
rosemary and sage. I picked them last night. Right, so if you see here, there's not so much, it seemed like I added a lot, but it has already gone down quite a bit, right? Yeah. All right, so at this point, I like to give it a little bit of spice, so there are these bird eye chilies that I grew in the summer. I'll just crush a few. They're not too spicy. At home, usually I add some red wine or dry sherry to this, about 1/4 cup. Like when I'm cooking, this gives it like a floral flavor, which is very nice. Soy sauce will give it more depth. And I like to add just like not more than a 1/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika. It's a very potent spice, so just a 1/4 teaspoon will
I wouldn't
will
think
be
of
enough.
putting smoked paprika in it, but that sounds good for another dimension
Well,
of flavor.
actually, a combination of dry sherry and smoked paprika just gives it a completely divine flavor
Everybody
in the
can
end.
write that down. That's beautiful.
Okay, so it's pretty much done almost. I made lasagna with it. So for lasagna, what I do, I take a quarter of this mixture, add pine nuts, and blend it, and so that makes it creamy.
Oh, okay.
For pasta, I don't really. I mean, you don't need to do it like it's nice to leave it a little chunky. But what we can do, we can create a bit of roux. So just add some more water, and then you could use like a pastry flour, or here I have some porcini flour.
Where do you find that?
I mean, it's Italian.
Oh, okay.
I guess I just
Porcini
bought it
powder.
online. There are various companies, Fungus Among Us. They have some nice
Fungus
products.
Among Us.
Yeah. So we just add a bit of porcini to thicken it up, like making a roux.
And then you'll put the parsley in.
Well, the parsley is garnish, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
fresh parsley goes on top.
So we're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to show you this beautiful sauce that Michael made from his mushroom logs and served over pasta. And like you said, also talk about your lasagna dish a little more.
Sure. Thank you.
Waves of fun. Nights of excitement. And a trail of memories. Now that's New Jersey.
This plus this equals this plus this and this. Don't drink and drive.
Listen, what will make your event simply beautiful? Is it your attire, your decorations, your entertainment? Well, join me, Alicia Simone, as I chat with some amazing vendors and clientele who will share their stories and images and their experiences. Right here on RVN TV, Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. and Wednesday at 4 p.m. It will be simply beautiful. See you then.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Welcome back. I'm Sherry Damaris and with Macro Magic and Michael Balabayev. And we are showing his mushroom logs. This is a shiitake mushroom log that he's inoculated and he sells off his website. And we made this beautiful pasta dish. I can't tell you how much I was impressed with all the flavors you put into it. With the various mushrooms that he grew this year and froze over the course of the year and put it on pasta. And you also said that you made some lasagna with the sauce.
Yeah, lasagna made a little creamy, so I took a quarter of the sauce, put it in the blender with pine nuts, and so that made it more creamy. But it's the same sauce.
So it's the same sauce,
yeah.
And you blended it with pine nuts.
Yeah, just not all of it, about a quarter.
To make it rich.
Yeah.
And then what else did you layer in the lasagna?
That's it, just the sauce.
I'm coming to your house for dinner.
All right, so this we could just garnish the pasta with like a little bit of parsley, and it's pretty much it's good to go.
That's beautiful, Michael, beautiful. And we tasted it over break. It was unbelievable taste. Just so nice and so rich and creamy. And so nice to know that you can buy these logs and they last up to 4 years, producing tons of beautiful mushrooms that taste so much better than the supermarket.
A couple of times a year at least, yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about your landscape and gardening work. I know that you cover a lot of the Philadelphia area. You've come to my house and built several garden beds, and my friends are completely amazed. Every year I post pictures of what I've harvested out of those beds, and they can't believe my produce is so huge and beautiful looking. What is your secret? It's like you're the leprechaun of gardens.
Well, I mean, I started doing this when I was 4 years old, so it's been a long kind of learning curve for me. So it's just basically trying different things, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
And it's amazing. So you came on and did a lecture with us Thursday night, and you talked about how to get started if you're just looking to either have a pot on your balcony, and you live in a high-rise apartment building, or you want just a little piece of land out your back door. And you explained it very simply, how to start your soil. Do you want to share that with us?
Well, most soil, as I said, is not ideal. So it's a good idea to start from scratch. First, clear out the weeds, and then get either buy good soil in bags, which would never be from a box store, but from a good nursery. Or what I prefer is get it from a bulk company that can produce organic soil and mix it with compost and whatever else you may need, even sand. And then I like raised beds, and so I covered that all in the podcast.
Yes, and you also talked about putting dried, crunched leaves on top of your garden.
Yeah,
throughout
in the fall
winter.
It's good to do, because then you don't need to till your soil. The worms do the work for you. They, as the leaves decompose, they bring them down and they aerate the soil. And then in the spring you top it off with a couple of inches of compost, which best if you make it yourself, but you can also buy it.
And
So-
what I thought was amazing too, you talked in the podcast about, you don't have to be a brilliant gardener to start a organic garden, and you basically use all organic materials, which are very simple to use, and your neighbor was using a lot of chemicals, and your wife made a remark that she didn't see any dragonflies.
No, not dragonflies.
Or
Lightning
bugs
Yeah.
on her lawn.
On his lawn.
On
yeah.
his lawn,
Well,
so-
because they're grubs, really. So if you use grub control, and you kill them off.
Yeah, and it was so sad that, part of nature, the cycle of nature is so destroyed with the chemicals. And
There's really no need for it. I don't understand why people do it. It's some kind of neuroticism, but it is dangerous. It's really detrimental.
very toxic.
Yeah.
And I know, especially with Roundup and some of those other chemicals, you've got to be really careful. So I
Yeah.
know there's organic weed killers that you can
I
buy.
actually use a product called Fiesta. It's copper-based, and it's a selective herbicide too. It kills off broadleaf weeds, even like clover and plantain, but it doesn't hurt your grass, so it's pretty cool.
And what is the product that you recommended to keep the squirrels away that's non-toxic?
Plant Skid. It's spelled Plant SKYDD. It's pretty much animal blood, but it's granular and works about 8 weeks. So it deters groundhogs, squirrels, rabbits, deer. This is pretty good stuff. Doesn't smell.
So
It's
easy,
inexpensive.
right? When you can't afford a
Inexpensive, yeah.
fence
Yeah.
around your garden.
Well, the fence does not deter squirrels. They're the worst culprits in the garden.
And what are your most productive vegetables? What are the easiest to grow? Like, say I'm starting a garden from scratch. I know nothing about gardening. I've got my organic compost and soil ready. What are some easy crops?
Well, it depends whether it's a cold season or whether it's warm season. The easiest things would be like lettuce is super easy. Radishes only take 25 days. So, I mean, you can plant them in February. You will have them by April. So,
And
well, tomatoes are super easy.
yeah,
But
tomatoes grow like crazy.
There's a
right?
bit of skill to all of this. And so that's, yeah.
Yeah,
The
you're-
cucumbers are very easy, but Japanese cucumbers grow much better here than regular ones. They can take the heat. There's something to know about every vegetable, pretty much.
And you're the expert.
Wow.
Well, you had recommended a book to all of our viewers in the podcast on growing vertically.
Yeah, vertical gardening. Yeah, it's a great book because most of
a
us
great
don't have much
technique.
space, but it also, plants are much healthier because there's better air circulation. They don't get fungal diseases so much. So.
Oh, nice. So we look to having you back on the show because you're just this font of knowledge with gardening and cooking. How can people reach you if they want to order a log, if they live locally, or if they want you to come out, maybe landscape their property, or get them started with organic, garden or some raised beds? How can they reach out to you?
Well, my website is endless-gardens.com, so all the contact information is on there. There is a tab called mushrooms, and the information about the logs I'll be inoculating is there. I haven't gotten any wood yet. That's the most difficult part. I mean, I have to go to the Amish country a few times next week and come back with a truckload of wood every time. It's, with a chainsaw. And, yeah.
And harvest it all. Well, I thank you so much, Michael, for being on the show. I've learned so much from you over the years about gardening, about landscaping, and now cooking. And I just think that you're so talented. You and your wife are great, great cooks. We've had his wife on the show before making cherry strudel. And I hope you come back.
Thanks, Sherry. I think you're doing a great service to everybody with this show.
Thank you. And join us for another episode of Macro Magic.